We're going to get started. If I could get your attention, we will practice our signal. Ignite. Thank you. We'll do that one more. Ignite. Thank you. Awesome. As we work our way back in, Jen and I are going to lead you through a structured reflection, and then we will be moving on to lunch, and then our amazing panel. Very excited about the next thing. But I want to thank you already for leaning in and authentically listening and engaging in that learning in your KWLA process this morning. But Jen's going to walk us through kind of structuring even more about what we do next to make sure we get to action and move away from not just knowing better, but doing better.
Yeah, so here we have that picture of that KWLA again, right? Really leaning into kind of what do we already know going into these conversations, going into the breakout sessions, really understanding what we already know. And the amazing thing about having the Blueprint Summit is that everyone in this room knows something that the person next to him doesn't know, right? So that's that great opportunity of coming together and building that what we know to what we're learning. And when we ask questions of ourselves of what do we want to know, it creates that inspiration to start researching, to start digging in, to start thinking about things different, to think about it from that student perspective, to have that growth mindset as we're entering into these conversations. Right, I think that's so important. We have a lot of different coalitions at E3, and one of the ones we get to be a part of is our College Career Military Readiness Coalition. And it's the 15 school districts in Central Texas that we support, and anyone from the Director of Advanced Academics to our coordinators that are on the ground working with the campuses to counselors. And every time I go into that coalition meeting, I learn something new about accountability. I learn about student and the way in which they're being engaged to take these kind of courses, right? And so when I take that learning, I go back to the data to understand it differently, to look at it with a new lens. And so that's the importance of kind of doing these chunks of KWLA, is it allows you to kind of chunk the information in a way that when you go back to your office, your campus, you go back in front of the educators, the practitioners, or the students, you're going in with that new set of, or a new lens, a new set of eyes, because you've expanded your learning. You're starting to ask more questions to really get to that true root cause so that we can create that level of systems change and act upon it. And so hopefully you learned a lot in the breakout session you chose. Hopefully it answered some of the questions that you went in with. And it hopefully created even more questions that you want to lean into, that you want to learn. Or you made a connection with someone that you're like, oh wait, I need to learn more from you. Let's exchange phone numbers or emails or calls. So that when you leave here today, this is full and you're starting to think about, what am I going to do? Right? How am I going to act upon this? Terry, do you want to add anything?
All right, so we're going to ask you to just lean in and come engage in your table with our same talk time normatives, of course, but really reflecting on the learning, like Jen said. We would just want to have an opportunity to take that reflection and challenge ourselves to record something, capture something in writing for ourselves so that we can move forward today and have an action plan. And again, Jen mentioned this morning the diversity in the room. We all have a different role that impacts the lives of students, and also we have a different role to play in our work. So keep that in mind. Also, many of us have students in our families or students in our lives. So I'm going to go back to Brittany. One of her first questions this morning was, you know, like we're real good at starting with the why. What's your why? And we even have movements, right? Posters. But Brittany asked a new question that I haven't heard. She said, "Who's your who?" You know, who is the soul or the person in your life that you think of when you really get on fire for this kind of change? And so making those connections with the students in our region, wherever they interact in your life. So we're gonna give you probably about 10 minutes at your table to take this time to reflect on our learning from the morning and really lean in and think about the connections that we're making with our prior learning. What did we know before today? What do we know now? And of course, after our amazing panel, and then more breakout sessions available in the afternoon. So there's even more learning and more W work to be done afterward. So let's take 10 minutes at our table to process, and then Jen and I will call you back. 10 minutes, go. All right, ignite. One more. Ignite. Thank you so much. All right, thank you for leaning in. Before we close out this morning learning, we do want to have an opportunity to share out. So if you have something that's resonating with you or something you heard in one of your sessions that just really you think the room could benefit, so we're excited to just hear a couple of big takeaways, big ahas, anything you'd like to share with the room. And if you'll just kind of wave at us.
Harry's going to run the floor while I sit here and direct her which way to go.
I don't know why they gave me this.
Hi, so one of the professors in the early alert session said that, I'm going to add a few words here. She said that we should no longer say at risk, we should say at potential. So I really like that.
Thank you, Marco.
Jen, you had snaps, so you appreciate that change, that language
that's
change?
Incredible.
Anyone else?
Someone coming from communications as they're waving their hands in the air, like that is so important, just the way in which we message or say something. I had a district, I know so many people have heard me say this, but they quit calling their parent advanced academic nights because they kept saying, well, we don't have parents show up. And the same parents show up every time, and so I had to have a conversation with them. I'm like, what are you calling it, advanced academics? So who's it for? Everybody. Well, if I've never been told my student's advanced or is not taking an advanced course, I'm going to see that and say, oh, this isn't for me. And they changed the name of that parent meeting, that parent night, and they increased participation by 32%, right? So just how we say things, right, that growth mindset, having that asset framing is so huge. So I love that you brought that to our attention. I know more people want to share.
Just pick somebody, Jen.
Right up here. I guess I could give her my mic, Terry.
I think just the sense of belonging, whether it's our pre-K3 students or our 12th graders or on to going college students, just the sense that they belong and they're important to all of us.
Yeah, absolutely love that. Terry, to the left over here, underneath the slide deck. Yes. Everyone wants to feel like they belong, right? Thank you for sharing that.
So I heard a lot of great things at our table about both the power of like micro affirmations and the beliefs and having systems in place and then having like the shared experience so we can relate to students. But the session I went to was the data session, and I just think the tool that E3 offers is amazing with the functionality and the ability to look at the disaggregated data, to look at where the bright spots are, to compare your district to other districts. So I just commend you on the power of that tool.
Thank you. Extremely powerful.
Jim, we have time for one more.
Yes.
If anybody else.
We're going to have two more as you work your way to the front.
I went to the session on action research, and I'm a national evangelist for the E3 work around math pathways and talk about it all the time. And I knew about the top 40% opt-in, et cetera, but we learned about what Round Rock had done in their Stony Point feeder pattern with not just saying the kind of automatic placement of the top 40%, but getting 60 and 70% of every single subpopulation in advanced math in 6th grade, and some of the strategies they used, and it was just fantastic and fascinating, and kudos to Round Rock.
Awesome. I mean, I think the power in policies like that, or when we look at that work, and we had a superintendent say this at our last superintendent meeting, is that when you see things through that lens, you start looking backwards and saying, wait, we tend to focus here, but maybe what we need to look at and impact is what is our implementation, what does our pedagogy look like in the grades leading up, so that we're not just saying we have to put all that quality here and focus here, but what are we doing before so that more students are lifted and on this advanced math pathway. So I love that.
Okay, cool. So for me, I went to the early alerts session, and one thing I took away from it was kind of like what I value in education now. So I know, like, I come from a super small town, first gen, and one thing my parents always were like, go to college and the best colleges. And yes, I did go to a very like prestige Ivy, which I'm really happy about. But now seeing all of like this research and like data, I'm kind of just like, value more is that support that they give to the students, like the success checks and like, hey, how are you doing? Hey, this class, like maybe you need a little bit of assistance, here's some tutoring. Which I feel is what's going to make the student succeed, the support system that other schools don't have. So it's kind of changed my like perspective to like how higher education is can best support like first gen students now that we have the knowledge of these things. So that was my
Thank you
takeaway.
for sharing that. The early alert system that Texas State and Concordia have been piloting and seeing a lot of successful results, I think is very impactful, and I do think it creates that sense of belonging, and it lets every student know on those campuses that we do want them to succeed, which I think is a mind shift, right? Like when I went to classes, what were those courses where they weed you out really quick? Like we thought that's what it was, right? And we're really trying to shift that mindset and shift that perception of what these courses are designed to do, so I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Appreciate it. I love all this learning. It's great energy in the room. Okay, so what's next is lunch. So that's exciting, but what I want to, let's hear it for lunch, snaps for lunch. But while you eat your lunch, please know that there is a panel of educators that is going to share some incredible ideas. Jen, you can chime if you know, if you want to share more about that, but they're going to be setting up. So actually, before we close, we're actually going to ask those people that are on the panel if you wouldn't mind making your way back to get your lunch first, and then head to Inspiration B, the breakout room, because we're going to meet over there and kind of prep for the panel. But then the panel will be in this room. So for the next hour, you'll be enjoying your lunch, and then at 12:30, we'll call your attention to the stage here, and this is where the panel will be. And do you want to share a little about the panel, Jen?
Yeah, so I'll just say, I think as we talk about education, right? And I love how Brittany started. I don't remember the exact question you asked, but like, how are we feeling about education, right? And there were some snaps, and there were some, I think when we talk about education, who do we see at the heart of it? Teachers, right? And we know that the rhetoric, most recently, especially in Texas, around our practitioners has not been through that asset framing or through that growth mindset lens. And so I really am excited about this panel of educators because they're going to share with you some really innovative ways in which they are trying to build up their practitioners, build their capacity, and also make them feel like they belong and that they are valued, and without them, then our education system is nothing, right? And so I think we are gonna learn a lot from that panel, so have your KWLA chart ready after you eat lunch to add some more knowledge, some more learning to it, and some more action that you wanna take away.